Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are taking a sharp turn away from the predictable world of data points and looking instead at the paradox of ultimate solitude.
Mm.
You know, the feeling you go deep into the wilderness, far from all the city noise, looking for quiet, seeking that sense of being completely alone.
And then you get it.
Exactly. But what happens when that extreme isolation brings you face to face with this unsettling realization that you are absolutely, terrifyingly not alone?
That paradox is really the core of the sources we've gathered today, and these are intense, very detailed, first-hand accounts from people who went deep into isolated parts of Pakistan.
Where are we talking about specifically?
We're looking at Buffandi Top, the mountain range of Kohe Chilten in Balochistan, and a secluded river spot near Lahore.
The three very different places.
Very different. And what makes these accounts so compelling, and what we're really focusing on for this deep dive, is their specificity. We're looking past just a general feeling of dread, and we're examining the precise, observable things that were reported.
The encounters with what the sources call non-human entities.
Or another creation.
Yeah. Okay, so let's unpack this. Our mission here isn't to validate or, judge whether these accounts are true. We're treating them as detailed observational reports.
Exactly.
We need to find the common threads, the specific warnings, the methods of psychological intimidation, and maybe the rules these unknown forces seem to play by. So let's start with the highest, most isolated account. This is near Buffandi Top.
Right.
It involved a man named Faraz, his wife, and their dog, Oreo. And the source is clear. Oreo is this black and white dog who's extremely obedient, only barks when he absolutely has to.
Which is a key detail. So they drive deep into this beautiful spot. The trees are sparse, but the noise, it's just gone. Total silence.
And right away, that beautiful solitude, it gets punctured.
It does. This is our first critical warning sign. Faraz calls a local man to bring them firewood, and the man's entire demeanor is, well, it's rigid, unusually serious.
He's not just making small talk.
No, not at all. He warns them explicitly that the place is fine by day, but non-things come out at night. He mentions animals, yes, but then he specifically references jinns, or another creation.
And he didn't just give them a vague, be careful. He basically handed them a survival manual for the night.
He did. The rules were crystal clear. Stay close to the tent, you have to keep the fire lit, and, this is the most important one, do not reply to any voices you hear.
And do not go outside, no matter what. This feels like an urgent warning about territorial ownership.
It is, and we see immediate confirmation of that threat through the dog, through Oreo.
The obedient dog.
The obedient dog who sensed something was wrong the second they arrived. The account says Oreo was just tense, constantly sniffing the air and staring rigidly in one specific direction.
Right.
The line where the sparse forest became a really dense jungle. And he wasn't barking aggressively. It was like he was paralyzed by the sustained fear.
So he recognizes a threat that isn't just a regular animal.
It seems so. He even avoided the local man who brought the wood, focusing instead on what was behind him in the trees.
Wow. Okay, so the atmosphere. It doesn't stay tense for long.
Yeah.
It becomes aggressive.
Very quickly. The first sign was all auditory. They started hearing these soft whispering sounds. The source calls it sargoshi, like conspiratorial murmuring from the tree line.
Could they make out what was being said?
No, completely unintelligible. It sounded like two people maybe arguing or trying to reason with each other, but it quickly escalated into a much louder, distinctly angry sound.
And then it becomes physical.
Yes. That auditory intimidation turns physical. It started with small stones being thrown, which is, it's a classic harassment method in these kinds of stories.
But it got worse.
It escalated to a large stone, hitting the tent with enough force to make the whole thing shake violently. And that forced Faraz to do the one thing he was sort of warned against.
He used his flashlight.
He did, and that's where the visual element just it's terrifying. When the light cut through the dark, he saw two eyes between the trees.
Animal eyes.
The source is adamant. Not animal eyes. They were positioned way too high, like 7 or 8 feet off the ground, the height of a truly immense person.
And their reaction to the light.
That's the most chilling part. An animal would run. These eyes didn't. They didn't retreat from the light at all. It was like they were consciously enjoying watching the couple's terror.
Oh, man.
And that visual intimidation was followed by the ultimate invasion. The name call. A tall shadow described as having a crooked spine, its head tilted, appeared right outside the canvas of the tent.
So they could see the silhouette.
They could. And then a heavy voice called out his name, Faraz! And then it called the dog's name, Oreo.
Why? Why
Yeah.
that level of personalization? It's so specific.
Well, the source notes that the voice sounded like someone struggling to pronounce the name for the very first time. Like it got the tone right, but the rhythm was all wrong.
It's imitation.
It suggests an intelligent entity that's been watching them long enough to learn their names, but it doesn't have the basic mechanics of human speech down. It's terrifying.
So what did they do? They had to get out of there.
They did. And the nightmare only ended when they retreated. As they were fleeing in their car, they saw the shadows of 3 entities, all tall, 7 to 8 feet, human-like, but with those crooked spines.
And how did they move?
Not like people. They were described as sliding or creeping through the bushes. And the final horror, they see a single, tall shadow just standing silently by the roadside.
It's watching them.
Just watching. It only turned its head to follow the car, and then it just disappeared into the tall grass. The source says it was like the earth literally swallowed it.
And the psychological impact on the dog.
It was profound. Oreo, the loyal dog, refused to go near dark areas at home after that. He would just stand rigid by the gate, facing inward. Like that psychological boundary from the wilderness had followed him home.
Okay, that story. That dealt with a really abrupt intrusion. But our next account is different. It's rooted in deep local history.
Right. This one features a traveler who went alone to Kohe Chilten in Balochistan. This was during the 2021 lockdown, so he was intentionally seeking total, complete isolation.
Even though the locals warned him.
Oh yeah, they warned him about everything terrorist, but also the other creation.
And the location itself is important here, right? Kohe Chilten.
The location dictates the whole narrative. It's steeped in this very specific local legend, the story of the 40 children.
What's the short version of that?
The legend is about a childless couple, a priest who helps them, and 40 stones that are miraculously turned into children. But then they all die. The spirits of these 40 children are said to wander that mountain.
So knowing all this, the camper actually took precautions.
He did. He used an ancient method, one that's recognized in that culture. He drew a perimeter line in the sand around his camp while reciting defensive Quranic verses. He was trying to create a spiritual boundary.
A safe space.
Exactly, trying to protect himself against an ancient known threat.
But it didn't work.
Well, despite the barrier, the entities, they communicated. Aggressively and very directly. First, he heard heavy, running footsteps that stopped, just suddenly right outside his tent.
Then what?
Then a scratching sound on the raw earth behind the tent. And when the traveler went to look, he found words, meticulously written on the ground.
A message.
A direct message. Go back, you are not alone.
That is direct. Wow. But it escalates from there, right? The legend comes to life.
It does. Around 2 a.m., he hears the chilling, very specific laughter of children. First 1, then 2, then 3, then dozens. Directly referencing the 40 children legend. This wasn't just some generic ghost story. This was tailored fear.
Yeah, this is where we get some kind of physical evidence reported in the source.
Shocking physical evidence. The camper goes outside, and near his dying fire, he finds small, tiny footprints. And he notes specifically that these footprints were stained, not with dew or water,
But with blood.
clearly with blood. That detail, for him, it grounds the folklore in this terrifying, undeniable physical reality.
And then they start to play a game.
A twisted game. They start playing hide-and-seek, or chupan-chupai, counting loudly, agonizingly, all the way up to 40.
Oh, that's awful.
And at that peak count, a cold gust of wind blows through the camp, bringing the stench of a rotting corpse, and a small hand taps forcefully on the tent.
What does he do? I mean, what can you do?
His body was paralyzed with fear, but he chose to confront them using his own cultural defenses. He started reciting the specific Quranic verses he'd been taught, and the terrifying voices stopped instantly. And then a soft voice spoke.
What did it say?
It said, "We are 40, you are 1. Go back before we start the game." This wasn't a primal scream. It was a clear, tactical, logical statement, overwhelming territorial dominance with a deadline.
So he responds to them.
His response is fascinating. It's like a strategic verbal counter. He states clearly that he's an invited guest, he's just seeking peace, and he'll leave in the morning. After his outburst, he saw shadows of children fleeing uphill at impossible speeds. It suggests that asserting a boundary, or maybe the verses, have provided some kind of temporary negotiated resolution.
Okay, so our final source brings us out of that high isolation and closer to the urban fringe. This is a river encounter near Lahore.
Right, a quicker, sharper experience. This involved 4 friends traveling late by bike in extreme cold. They decided to camp near a river that locals actively avoided after 9 p.m.
Why? What was the reputation?
Just that it was frightening and not right.
And the first warning sign here wasn't a person, it was the environment itself.
Exactly. The defining characteristic was the extreme, unnatural silence. Normally, near water at night, you'd expect something. Insects, animals, dogs in the distance.
But there was nothing.
Only the water and the wind. This kind of environmental anomaly, it immediately signals that the natural world has been suppressed or driven out by some localized presence.
And then comes the direct sighting.
Yeah. One of the friends, Raja Bilal, he was in a slightly damaged tent with a small hole in it. He woke up hearing his name being called, softly.
Just like in the first story.
Just like Faraz.
Yeah.
And he looks through that tiny hole in the tent, and he sees a single, visceral, completely red eye staring directly back at him.
Just an eye.
Just an eye. That sudden, impossible closeness and the specific color, it caused him to scream. And this account introduces a new pattern, which is mechanical phenomena.
Interference with their stuff.
Right. After the red eye sighting, they felt like someone was checking their bikes. At first, they just thought it was thieves. But then, one of the self-start motorbikes spontaneously engaged and started itself.
A self-start just turning on.
By itself, which is a direct violation of how that technology should work. It suggests an entity capable of interfering with modern human objects.
And this one thankfully ends with a human intervention.
A timely one. A security guard, an actual living human, showed up, confirmed the place was dangerous and not right, and basically yelled at them to leave immediately. It seems like even the local human guardians understood the strict, dangerous boundary on that river spot after dark. So if we connect all these sources now, we start to see these remarkably consistent patterns across drastically different places.
You've got the high peaks of Buffandi top, the deserts of Balochistan, and the plains of Punjab.
And yet, the patterns are there.
The first, and maybe the most powerful one, is the common warning. It was detailed, explicit, and absolutely serious in all three cases.
Well, locals knew the rules. Stay close, keep the fire lit, don't speak, don't linger. And in all three cases, the campers chose to either ignore or, I guess, minimally respect these deep-rooted rules.
Believing it was just superstition.
And they paid the price for that skepticism.
Second, the methods of psychological intimidation. They were so intensely personalized.
These were not random noises in the dark. The entities used the campers' specific names. Faraz, Oreo, Raja Bilal, and they were acutely aware of their numbers.
We are 40, you are 1.
Exactly. This suggests prolonged observation, specific planning, and a deep intelligence that knows how to target the psychological vulnerability of an individual.
And the movement. That's the other consistent signature. It's not physical.
It's not. Whether it was the tall shadows in Buffandi top sliding or creeping, or the shadows of children in Kohe Chilten running uphill at impossible speed, the movement was consistently unnatural.
It defied the normal way a human or an animal would move.
It did. And the relationship with nature is reversed. In a typical horror story, you hear all the wild noises. Here, the presence of these entities either actively suppresses animal life, creating that dead silence.
Like in the Lahore story.
Or it triggers this extreme, sustained, specific fear in a highly trained animal, like Oreo, who clearly recognizes a threat that is not from his world.
And I think what stands out to you as a listener is how these sources turn this abstract cultural dread into really undeniable concrete details.
Yeah.
These entities, they have physical definitions. The 7 or 8 foot height, the crooked spine, the blood on the sand, the sudden stench of a corpse, the single red eye.
The name being spoken with difficulty.
All of it. These details, they function as irrefutable proof within the camper's own stories. It turns this vague fear into something concrete and undeniable for them.
Well, we have to look at the motivation. In Buffandi top and Kohe Chilten, the entities delivered explicit, logical messages. They were stating territorial dominance.
Go back. The area belongs to us.
You are one. These are not random threats. The goal was clearly less about immediate brutal harm, though that was threatened, and entirely about asserting boundaries. It was about forcing a retreat.
They were treating the humans as trespassers.
Trespassers who had overstayed their welcome.
And that final point about the mechanical phenomena in Lahore, it raises a fascinating question about our modern vulnerabilities. We rely on our technology, right? Our bikes, our flashlights, our phones. There are safety nets against the dark. The entity's ability to just start a motorbike or to be totally unaffected by a powerful flashlight, it's a specific challenge to the very tools we use to feel in control of the wilderness. So we took a deep dive into Faraz's story of the Buffandi top warning and that chilling name call. the Kohe Chilten traveler who have endured the 40 children's game, and Raja Balai's terrifying moment with the Lahore River red-eye and the spontaneous motorbike start.
And what all three sources reveal is a consistent pattern. The deep wilderness is not just empty space, ready for human tranquility,
Yeah.
but it is actively inhabited. It's governed by local entities with very clear rules and boundaries.
Which brings us to our final thought.
Considering the repeated belief that the humans in these stories were trespassing guests, that they overstayed their welcome and violated local knowledge, what does this tell you about the true meaning of solitude? And maybe the price of ignoring deep-rooted local intelligence when you try to escape the human world?